All right, hello everyone. This is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. I'm going to introduce the topic of two-dimensional arrays in this particular project. Now, you know what an array is. An array is, you can think of it as a row of data or a collection of data, but it's the similar data type. So you either have an array of integers or an array of doubles or an array of characters. You can't mix and match them. Well, it's also possible to have a two-dimensional array, and the way that I want you to think about that is like a table. So let's create a quick program where the user clicks Create Table, and then it's going to solve this addition table, where this cell right here would be the addition of 1 plus 1. This one, for example, would be the addition of 2 plus 2, so 4 would be placed here, so forth and so on. Now, I'm making this deliberately small so that I can explain to you the concept, and then you can take it from here to something bigger. All right, so I have not given names to these various items, so let me go ahead and do that. The name of this button will be btn create table. That one's pretty easy. For this guy over here, I think what I'll do is I'll still use the convention LBL because this is a label, but since this label really represents the row 1, column 1, I think I'll say this is LBL1 underscore 1. So this is LBL1 underscore 1. As you can see over here, LBL, don't get confused here. That's the number 1. That's the number 1. These first 3 letters are LBL. So I think what I'll do is I'll just copy that. And this guy over here will be LBL row 1, column 2. So the first number is going to represent the row. The second number is going to represent the column. For this guy over here, that's going to be row 2, column 1. Remember, columns stand up and down. Rows go from left to right. And then finally for this guy, that's going to be row 2, column number 2. So over here, row 2 underscore column 2. So this is LBL11, this is LBL12, LBL21, LBL22. So that I have a convention here for row, column for each of these different cells. All right, let me go ahead and save my work by clicking the Save All button. I don't need the toolbox anymore. I don't need the Properties panel anymore. And now I'm going to double-click on Create Table. So it takes me into the code area. All right, now what has to happen here, first of all, is a declaration of the number of rows and the number of columns. Now, you'll recall that in Visual Basic, it's the last index that is defining how big the array is, not the size of a row or size of a column. So for example, if I have, let me just put in the notes here so you can see the video later on. If I have an item like this, well, we know that this array is 5 in size, and the last index is 4. So whatever the size is, minus 1 gives you the last index. Whatever the last index is, plus 1 gives you the size. Right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Here's the location of the first item. Maybe I have the letter A in that first item, and Z in that second item, and so forth and so on. Right? But I have a total of 5 items. Okay. So let me first start off with some declarations. I'll say get. Actually, we don't have to get the user input. Pretty much we have to assign all of these labels to an array. So we'll say assign all labels to the array. Then we're going to calculate the array sums, and that'll do it. Okay, so over here in the declarations section, we're going to create a constant, and I'm going to call it last row index. This will be an integer, and I'll set that to 1.
All caps.
Yeah, all constants must be capital letters. A constant is something that doesn't change. For example, if I said dim row as integer, and that means that this thing is changeable. It's a variable. This thing, on the other hand, does not vary. So the convention is to capitalize all of the letters of constants so that a programmer would look at this and say, oh, I bet that's a constant. All they have to do is hover their mouse pointer on top of that. Yep, there it is. It's a constant. It does not change. You can change it here, but you can't change it anywhere in the program. Let me create another constant. Last column index as integer. And again, we'll just say 1. So maybe I can see, where's my drawing app here? I hate drawing with my mouse. I'd rather have my pen, but that's okay. Just so that I can illustrate this concept here. So I'm going to have this guy over here like this. Put that over here. So what I'm saying is, for this row right here, right, this is going to be row 0, and this is going to be row 1. This is going to be column 0, standing up and down, and this is going to be column 0, this is going to be column 1. So we know that this is a 2 by 2, 2 rows, 2 columns. So over here, the last row index is 1. Yep, that's right, even though we have 2 rows. The last column index is 1. Yes, that's correct. There it is, 1, even though we have 2 columns. Right? Because we always start counting from 0. Right? That's what computer scientists like to do. Now, here's my goal. My goal is to say, take this label and put it into an array. So let me scroll down a little bit. You know how we have these labels. I'll just do something like this here. That represents these labels right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are the 4 labels. What I want to do is I want to put the content of this label into this array item, and the content of this label into this array item, so forth and so on. This is not going to be an array of labels. It's going to be an array of the items, or the content of those labels. I want to put them over here, because then, actually, you know what? I misspoke. That's not true. I do actually want to put the labels in this array, because then what this will do is, once I have this with an array, I can use loops to access this label, which is the same thing as 0, 0. This label is 1, 1. This label is 0, 1, where the row comes first, then the column comes next. So I actually am creating an array of labels. So let me go back over here, go back to the code area, and I'm going to need a column counter. So we'll say integer. Now let's create the 2-dimensional array. So this thing, I'll just call it label array. And that's going to be based on the last row index, comma, last column index. As, and then I'll put the word label over here. So what is this array? It's an array of labels. The last index, row and column, are 1. So in other words, this is a 2-dimensional array that's in essence a 2 by 2, just like this image over here. All right. Well, once I've created that, now I'm not saying that this is necessarily the most efficient way of placing labels on a screen. Probably a better way to do that is referred to as dynamically placing these labels. Again, I'm just trying to explain a concept. How do you get these labels inside of this array so that you can use loops to refer to each of the different items? So that means over here, I'm going to have to assign all the labels to the array. So let's see here. This guy over here This one is 0, 0. Let me select it so that you can see this is the one that I'm referring to. So I'm going to take this label, which is this one over here, right? Take that label, and I'm going to place it into label array 0, 0. I want to put it into this spot right here. Okay, so that's label array 0, 0, right? This location right here, see, 0, 0, this location right here. Now, what are you going to contain? Well, you're going to contain this label right here, and what did we call that? LBL11. LBL1 underscore 1. Enter. Okay, now I have a total of 4 assignments to make because I have 4 labels, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think what I'll do is I'll just take this and I'll copy and paste it. Copy, paste, paste, paste. So I have a total of 4 of these, but I've got to change those numbers, obviously. For example, this label over here has to go into 0, row 0, column 1. Well, remember, that's this guy over here. LBL1 underscore 2. So LBL1 underscore 2 is going to go into 0, 1. So that's going to be a 1 right there. For these bottom 2, we're going to be dealing with row 1. So I could put this guy into 1, 0 and this guy into 1, 1. So I can go ahead and just change this guy over here to 1 and 1 and change that over here to 1. So 1, 0 and 1, 1. Well, what am I going to be putting into 1, 0? Let's see here. Yep, you got that right. This guy right here. And let's see, what did we call that? Of course, I'm being redundant. LBL21. LBL21. And then over here in 1, 1, we're going to be placing this label. And over here, what did we call this guy over here? We call it LBL22. You got it. LBL22. So this is LBL2 underscore 2. Save my work. So what's the concept that I want you to understand? We have an array. In that array, if I could place these labels, then I could say, oh, this label right here is supposed to be the summation of 1 plus 1. Put that answer here. And for every outer row, we're going to go through an inner column, right? So for this row, we deal with this column and then this column. For this row, we deal with this column and then this column. So we're trying to populate the labels with data, but instead of me manually taking care of everything, let me do an outer loop, which takes care of every row, and then an inner loop that takes care of every single column. And that's why we're going to be using these row counters. Okay, so now let's go ahead and calculate the data and put them into the labels. Okay, let me go back over here. And you see that, why don't we do this? Let's say for every row. So here's a row right here. So for every row, we're going to deal with every column. So for this row, we're going to deal with column 0 and then column 1. So for row equals, let's see here. It looks like the starting point is 0. So 0, 2. All right, looks like the ending point is, for if I take care of every row, if I take into consideration every row, 1. So I don't want to do this. This is wrong. Don't type this. What would be better for me to do is to use that constant that I created. Because therefore, if I change the program in the future, I could just change it right here as opposed to hard coding the answer. So that, what is that called? Last row index. Okay. Last row index. So in other words, we're going to start with this row, 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, however many rows there are. And we only have 2 rows, so no big deal. Now let's do the same thing for the column. So we'll say column, we'll start off at, let's see here. Looks like we start off at column 0. And then When we're finished with that, we go to column 1. So column 0 to last column index. There we go. So here's the outer loop. For every outer row, we're going to take care of all of its columns. Then we go to the next row and then deal with its columns, and so forth and so on. Now, what are we trying to do? I want to take these labels and I want to put them, let me see, how do I redo? Shift, okay, so shift. I want to put them into these array elements, just like that. Okay. So, into the label array, based on the current row and column, dot text, because this is an array of labels, so that means it has a text property. What I'm going to do is place into this, we'll say convert.toString. All right, now let me stop right here. You know that this is supposed to be the result of 1 plus 1, so 2 should go here. Now, the row starts off at 0, the column starts off at 0, so I can't do this. Let me just make this temporary mistake so you can see what I'm doing. I can't say row plus column, because row is 0, column is 0 at first. 0 plus 0 is 0. Should we put the number 0 here? No, obviously it's supposed to be 1 plus 1. So I'm going to have to modify this. I'm going to have to say this is really whatever the row value is plus 1, whatever the column value is plus 1. Now notice that if we start off with 0, 0, this is going to be 0 plus 1 is 1, plus 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. We'll put the 2 in this box right here. And let me close the parentheses right here to balance the statement. All right, so let me step back a little bit to make sure you understand this concept. This is called LBL1_1, right? That's called LBL1_1. As a result of this assignment, we can also call that label array 0, 0. In other words, check this out. So I go home and my son points to me and he says, Daddy. I go home, my wife also points to me, but she says husband or honey, right? They're both pointing to the same person, right? My son calls me one thing, my wife calls me another. But they're both pointing to the same item. So it doesn't matter if I'm referring to this over here as LBL1 or label 0, 0. As a result of this assignment, what I'm saying is, yeah, this guy over here, LBL1_1, you're also going to be called label array 0, 0, because I am putting you into this array. So it doesn't matter if I call you this or this, we are referring to that same item right here. So therefore, when I complete all of these assignments, this label right here can be referred to as LBL2_2, or it could also be referred to as label array 1_1. So to change one, you're changing the other. And that's why over here, since I am referring to a bunch of labels, that specific text property is going to receive a modification. At first, it's going to be row 0, column 0. The text property is going to change to the addition of these two, or the sum of these two. When I change 0, 0, that's the same thing as changing LBL11. They're both referring to the same thing. So let's see here what happens. Save my program, execute the code. All right, let me click Create Table. You see 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 2 is 4. Yep, looks like it got it right. So I'm changing the label over here, which in essence is changing all of these labels that I have actually given the names LBL11, 12, 21, 22. but I'm doing it with an array. Look how beautiful that is. It's quick. And that's where the beauty of arrays come in, especially in this case, two-dimensional arrays. They can contain whatever data you want, and you can immediately change them. In this case, since it's a two-dimensional array, I have an inner loop and then I have an outer loop to take care of all of these different items within the two-dimensional array. And that's it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.